He's just going to come in.
So I'm just going to man the phones?
If you don't mind.
I know.
Yeah, because it went over pretty well last time.
Gentlemen, welcome to the Conspiracy Farm, where we don't start the conspiracies, we just add the water. And now, your host of the most state-of-the-art, most informed podcast on the interweb, I present to you Pat Miletich and Jeffrey Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for war?
Yes, that's what I ask you. Are you ready for war, I say? War, I say. Yes, yes. Jeffrey Wilson coming to you live and direct from the Rock and Roll Mansion. Hanging out, chilling. Another episode of the Conspiracy Farm. Jeffrey Wilson riding shotgun. UFC, Hall of Famer, Eater of Worlds, Master of the Tango. Pat Miletich, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I am not a master of the tango, but thank you.
Well, you know, I just got to keep throwing in those awesome little descriptions of you each week.
Right. So, we've got some interesting stuff going on here this week, Jeff.
We do.
Some theatrics.
Well, we, you know, this week we run into a problem this week with a couple of our guests. Well, actually with this show and our other show, but we are going to freestyle once again because actually we got a lot of great feedback last week about, you know, people calling in, wanting to chat. Do you mind turning my headphones up a little bit, Jay? I'm having a little trouble hearing myself.
I think mine need to be turned up too.
And so this week we are going to, you know, chop it up. We got some current events we want to chop it up about, as well as taking some calls. And that number, if you want to call in, 563-391-3776. We're going to be taking your calls for the full hour, man. Whatever you guys want to talk about, current events, go ahead and shoot. I got some current stuff I want to talk about, but you know, what's on your mind, bro?
I'm really amazed with we have to talk about it. Jussie Smollett.
We've
got to talk about the attack, the alleged attack that happened in Chicago, downtown Chicago.
Crazy.
On one of the coldest nights in history.
Right.
I think it was 25 below zero or something like that. And he was out just hanging out on the streets of the Windy City.
Yes.
At 25 below zero. And
2 or 3 in the morning.
Couple other gentlemen wearing
subway
red hats happened to attack him while he was on the phone with his agent.
Yeah.
And screamed, "This is MAGA country."
Then poured bleach on him, which is weird.
This is MAGA country, and apparently threw a rope around his neck.
Yeah, a shoelace fashioned as a noose, as we found out, which was bought by Ace Hardware from the proceedings of the $3,500 that were paid to, not the white MAGA guys, not that you have to be white to be MAGA, but the black as night cats from Nigeria, who clearly hated Jussie Smollett because he was black. I mean, this is bad, man.
It's interesting. It's really bizarre how it all went down, and if the current leaks that are coming out, it seems they've got apparently a grand jury put together.
I believe so.
On this, and he's supposed to meet with police. Decided he wasn't going to meet with police today. He's now calling the shots.
Well, I mean, you got filing of false reports. I mean, you got a lot mixed in that bag there.
Right, and I read an article dated February 14th of this year, which was, obviously not that long ago, a few days ago, saying today that, it was saying basically on February 14th that Kamala Harris and other representatives, Cory Booker and a few other folks, had brought to the floor for vote on an anti-lynching law, and it was actually misleading. So I was wrong. Christian Sutton, who's a friend of mine from Texas, corrected me on that. That law was actually passed in 2018, so thank you for that, Christian. But there's some funky stuff going on here with how everybody jumped on board with this whole thing, from politicians to fellow Hollywood folks.
Yeah,
blaming the Vice President Pence and Trump for the attack and all this other stuff. It's very bizarre that everybody looks for that opportunity to.
Well, it was kind of fresh off the heels of the kids in D.C. with the Native American guys. So it was like, even though that story was freshly BS, and then we roll into this other one which I just.
They're just going to keep throwing these things at us. And now, will the media really even follow up with Smollett and what transpires with this? I doubt that they will really.
I mean, the silence has been pretty deafening so far.
It's a good thing, though. Guys like Al Sharpton and other people are saying, Smollett, if this stuff's true, needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law because, there's other black leaders who are saying, man, you could have caused literally race riots because of this.
I mean, I won't name names, but I was seeing other celebrities like, man, how long are we going to put up with this till we fight back? And it really, I mean, we all know. I mean, it just there's a lot of ill in the world, and when something like this happens, it totally.
My radar goes off, though. My radar goes off because.
But I mean, for legitimate situations that need to be addressed, this winds up taking some legitimacy away from that when it becomes
because
there
are obviously real racists out there. There are real attacks that happen. There are real, jerks in our society that are doing that stuff. Do I think it's nearly as prevalent as people say? I really don't. But I'm in a different city almost every week, and I don't see people of color or different religion, hating on each other and things like that. I'm really not seeing that. Now, right. I'm not hanging out in the rough areas of town where the police are patrolling and maybe running into altercations with people, things like that. So, but generally in society, people aren't hating each other because, the pigment of their skin. It's just not happening.
Well, and we've talked about it many times. I mean, it's not even just that, like from religion to sexual. I mean, this was firing on all the cylinders. This was racial. This was homophobic. This was political. So they had the nice little trifecta going on in there, which, it just poisons the waters that are already super, super poisoned because we know how polarized the political conversations are. And I'm just seriously just dumbfounded, man. This was a complete work. You know what I mean? None of this was legit.
Well, and of course, our friend from Chicago, Bill Camper, who was a Bettendorf grad and known him for years. He's like, well, we need to just sit back and let this ferment for a while and let the investigation take its route. Well, the investigation kind of has taken its route.
Yeah, for sure.
When the two guys that were responsible for the attack were released without charges. And because they basically spilled the beans on everything that went down, that they got paid and all that sort of stuff.
$3,500.
So from what I'm told, they said the police called Jesse Smollett and said, "Hey, we got the guys that attacked you. We need you to come in and ID them." Imagine the look on his face when he went in there and saw his two Nigerian buddies and went, "Oh no, oh no, of course that's not them." Of course that's not them.
I don't even know, man. There's so many levels of it that just obviously just bothers me, but this is MAGA country said by two Nigerian cats. Like, I mean, again, you can be Nigerian and love MAGA.
Apparently they told police that they rehearsed this whole thing.
Right. No, exactly. It was a rehearsal going on.
Did you see those guys, how built they were?
Yeah.
Those guys are scary looking, rough, and fit, powerful dudes. And Jesse Smollett, claims, I fought for my life. I defended he had a bruised rib and a scratch under his eye.
Well,
those guys, look, I'm a former UFC champ. Those guys are young. They're big. They're strong. I'm guessing me as a former UFC champ, I don't know if I'm getting out alive if they're intent on hurting me.
Well, and obviously, and from historically, we've seen, the real result of like real racial attacks, real homophobic attacks on whatever side. It's not just one side's exclusive to it, but you come away much more scathed than this young man was. And come to find out, there was actually a fight in a nightclub between he and some other dude about some other man business, and that's I think where he caught one of his wounds from, or it all has gotten convoluted. But at the end of the day, it sounds like
he got scratched in a cat fight, is what you're saying.
Essentially, it was an argument over poles, I guess. Like whose pole was whom's. But apparently that was the root of it. And then it got turned into whatever it got turned into. So I mean, it really is just upsetting because we've talked about many times in this show, bro. Like the divisions are so deep in this country, and then to have something like this come up and be like super manufactured is just so super unfortunate, man. Just beyond unfortunate.
Yes, it is. It is, because we're doing our best to try and bring the truth to people. We're trying our best to try and bring people together.
Well, and I wonder how many people are going to be. I wonder how many people will come out and apologize for that complete freaking. There was no wait. Let's see how this teases out. It was viscerally reactive because of course this had to have happened. because Trump and Trump supporters are just so terrible. I mean, it's terrible. It's disgusting, dude. It really is gross.
It's terrible.
It is. It's a terrible thing that has occurred.
Kamala Harris was questioned about it.
Give us your
today.
damn questions. Give us your comments, man. 563-391-3776. Don't be a scaredy cat. Give us a call.
Kamala Harris was questioned about it today, and she turned around and looked when they said, "Hey, do you have any comment on your tweet regarding the Jussie Smollett, the lynching thing and all that stuff?" And she turned around and looked at the people behind her like, who's running my Twitter? Like, who is running my Twitter? Well, how am I? She was stuttering and stammering. She did not know.
There were some
what
of the
to
first
say, man.
ones, man. Some of the first. I was actually listening. I forget what the hell was on today. I think I heard Al Sharpton or something like that. It was just doing what Al does. Just kind of trying to maintain some relevance and pimping any situation having to do with race, even if it's fabricated. But good old Al. But yeah, give us your thoughts, man. 391-3776. We got a couple things on the dossier today, man. Not just Mr. Smollett and his little WWE work he put on everyone. What about Andrew McCabe?
Andrew McCabe comes clean, huh? I think he's throwing people under the bus. He knows he is in deep trouble.
Yeah, he had thrown Rosenstein under the bus like a few weeks ago. We were talking about the 26th Amendment. He agreed to wear a wire.
McCabe saying that Rosenstein told him, I never get checked for wires or anything like that when I go into the White House. I can wear a wire and talk to the president. And Scott Pelley from 60 Minutes, who Scott Pelley came to the Quad Cities, did a story on at my gym and at Henzo Gracie's gym one time about mixed martial arts when the sport was so controversial. But so Pelley, I've talked to a lot. He's a decent guy in person. He really is a nice guy. But he was asking McCabe, why would you wear a wire? Why would you wear a wire into the Oval Office? And he said, well, as a criminal investigation, right? They were spying,
illegally monitoring the president of the United States.
This is seditious. I mean, this is treason. This is stuff that is very, very serious. If all of this stuff is proven, which we pretty much know because it's all documented, right, Jeff? We've been covering this for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, bro. Even back, when we had some guests on talking about this, I mean, it was pretty cut and dry that they never expected Hillary to lose. And then once the DNC emails were hacked and all of that stuff was hacked and Hillary's, people have forgotten about this company called CrowdStrike came in, and that's what began essentially the Russin narrative. Your DNC going through Perkins Coie, going through Fusion GPS to create this dossier. I mean, it was just a full-on assault on this cat to not allow him to be president. Now, whether you like him or not, you have to understand the ridiculous precedent that has been set as far as federal election fraud, weaponizing the Justice Department, weaponizing the media to literally not allow a dude to get president, and she still lost.
Yes.
That's what's
and
so
that was the thing they didn't count on.
Yeah,
all of this stuff would have been swept under the rug, obviously, and it would just have evaporated, disappeared from existence. But because he won, that the rats started to scurry, the cockroaches, the light went on in the bathroom, and the cockroaches started scurrying, panicking, trying to cover their tracks, man. And it's been.
Well, and it's not just they were doing this to cover their tracks as far as stealing the election for Hillary and the machinations they went through to try to malign Trump. You're talking about possibly the last 4 to 5 years of the Obama administration, some of the illegalities going on with Libya and Syria and the funneling of weapons to Syria. I mean, I forget her name. I can't think of her name right now, but her doxing and outing certain people. I mean, there's just so many different felonies that were going on that, like you said, would not have been talked about or even alluded to had Hillary won. But
the assistant, on the phone, the assistant director, Newland, in her conversation with the gentleman from, I believe it was from the Trilateral Commission, possibly, or the Council on Foreign Relations, where they were talking about putting in who they were going to put in the Ukraine, right? Do you remember that?
I don't. But we've been.
That was the famous. That was the famous phone call that they only played the part where she said, "F the EU."
Oh, right. I remember that. I remember her saying that.
So they were talking about putting in the heavyweight boxer.
Not Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Klitschko.
They were talking about putting Klitschko in as a leader. She said no, he needs to be more like a kind of a people's person, thing, and they ended up putting a gentleman who was a former head of the central bank in that region of the world in the Ukraine. They put him in power as a temporary leader while they were pulling their strings and trying to yank Ukraine away from Mother Russia.
Yeah, that's been going on for quite a while,
right? But that just shows what they're willing to do, is what I'm saying.
Oh, without a doubt.
That's kind of where I was going with that. But the spying on Trump, though, it's so out of control. And now that we've got the FBI and other intelligence community folks and the Senate group that was investigating the Russian collusion, all of them have come out and said that there was no collusion between the Trump administration and Russia. Right? They've basically all come out and said it. Even the FBI has said that.
Right.
And that is collapsing. So now they've got to move on to something else. And there's still people out there. There's still people out there that continually comment on all kinds on Twitter and Facebook about, comrade, Russia. And I'm sitting there going, we knew that this wasn't true 2 years ago.
Right.
Right? The documents were all there for you to look at, and you're still chirping on about Russia.
Yeah, I mean, political bias, confirmation bias will do that to you. I mean, I'm not.
It's projection. It's deflection by the DNC and by all the Democrats, the liberals.
Well, it's just so
to frame Trump for something that they actually did. There was zero money that came from Russia for the Trump campaign, but yet the Clinton Foundation got $145 million for selling the most strategic element in the world.
Yes.
20% of our reserves of the most strategic element in the world, uranium,
yes,
yellow cake, to Russia.
Right.
And you still can't see the truth. You still literally can't see the truth. I mean,
like I said, once you weaponize something like the Justice Department to spew your line for you, and then the media just compounds it and reiterates it over and over. I mean, people's minds, they're easily dissuaded. I mean, they're in the, like I said, when you have that confirmation bias, and that's why I say it's so petulant. They just don't like dude. And I'm not saying I love the dude, but let's at least not be 12 years old about it. You know what I mean? I'm just, whatever he does, I'm just not going to like it. Which, it's such a provincial attitude. But,
he tweets mean things.
Well, and it's so weird because I just ask people, so where were you? I get it, Obama, and I hate to do this whole, Obama did this, and but, do we realize the death and destruction, the many men, women, and children that were killed under the Obama foreign policy? That's not unique to presidents, but it's like they act like just because he was so affable personally, he hasn't been capable of just complete and utter, just straight murder. Whether it's, whatever's going on in Libya, whatever happened to Gaddafi, you see what's happened now. You have Africans being sold in open slave markets in Libya.
Americans can't
ISIS,
connect just
ISIS.
what you just said there. North Africans being sold in slave markets in Libya.
Sub-Saharan, Africans, period, but
right.
Sub-Saharan Africans, yeah.
You sit there. Americans can literally not connect to that mentally. That is so in our, it happened in this country not that long ago.
No.
Right? A few generations ago almost, right?
Right.
So it was not that long ago that was going on, but people literally can't connect to that and I think compute it and believe it, that it's actually happening. And it happened because Hillary Clinton's State Department and Barack Obama's administration literally destroyed that nation and took out Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi actually was doing so many good things for his citizens. Now, I'm not saying he was a good guy.
No.
I'm not saying he was a good guy.
None of them are good.
I mean,
gangsters,
Reagan tried to take him out with a missile, blew his house up, and killed his daughter. But I think he just started walking to the beat of our drum.
Well, I mean, just look at this. Look at the picture that's painted, man, in the script that's written. All these guys who don't want to play central bank ball. Iraq, Saddam gets taken out. Libya, he wants to create a dinar, he gets taken out. Syria, he doesn't want to mess with the central banks. Iran, same thing. It's always usually these economic machinations behind the scenes that are getting these people murked, and then they have the nerve to talk about genocide being performed on their people or whatever, when there's usually no proof of that. And unfortunately, us and our allies have done more genocide around the world, from the sanctions on Iraq that have cost 500,000 to almost 1 million people to die. The displacement of millions of people in Syria and the death of millions of people. We just kind of overlook that shit because when we do it, we're so exceptional. 391-3776. Chime in on the conversation, you guys. What's going on in the world? What is on your mind? We're very curious here at the old conspiracy farm. We don't start the conspiracies. We just add a little bit of
I'm just adding this phone number to my Facebook share.
Yes, 391-3776. Last week we had some awesome calls, man. North Carolina, Miami, a little bit of everywhere. Chiming in on what was on their mind. What is on your mind, gang? What else did we have, man? We had another active shooter situation over there in Aurora, Illinois. A man who was fired and then killed a young man. It was his first day. I just got out of college. He had a degree in human resources, was sitting in for his first firing, and that guy wound up killing him, young man.
And he was supposedly the shooter was supposed to be fired from that, right?
Yeah.
Is that
that's what set him off? Yeah,
he was sitting in that. That's where the shooting started because that young man that was killed was in.
I don't know if he went and got his gun and came back, or I think he did know he was going to be fired.
But I believe 5 police officers were also shot.
They were,
and they ran straight into gunfire and took the guy out. Right,
without a doubt.
That's some heroes. That's some heroes, and it's
unfortunate. Obviously, the lives were lost.
But he also had a FOID card that he should not have had.
He never had. Well, he had it, but once he his whatever,
it was never revoked.
Yeah, exactly. What's that? Was there some legislation to be passed that could? I mean, is that a fall through the crack moment type thing? Is that something that we need to have more legislation, or what's?
Well,
is that just the bureaucracy messing up, doing what they do?
It's pretty hard to get a gun in Illinois.
Yeah,
in Illinois also, I believe that they brought a bill up where they will check your social media before you're allowed to own a weapon. That's coming off that Parkland shooting, I think. A lot of states are doing that preemptively, essentially, like you said, looking at your you have a different political stance than we like. You can't exercise your Second Amendment. That's crazy, man. That's very, very 1984-ish. Well, exactly. And then when these things kind of happen, you're like, yeah, he shouldn't own a gun. I mean, it's a very nuanced conversation, but when we start getting into being so emotional after these kind of things, especially after Parkland, that's when they start doing that whole, excuse me, if you say XYZ online, then, you no longer can own a gun. That's some dangerous waters, man. Because, I mean, what if it's on the other side, like someone has determined that you are, through your speech or through your political views, that you no longer, can have free speech, can own a weapon, whatever it is. I know people kind of applaud that shit now because, they might be against guns, but what if it's going against something that you like or, whatever it is. Rainwater collectors, we know people get arrested for that across the country. Exactly. If people are like, yeah, get those rainwater collectors, those self-sufficient bastards. 391-3776. Don't be scared. Come holler at the champ and myself. We're just bouncing around today, man. Everybody's afraid to call in. We want people to call in who don't agree with us also. If you believe that guns should be outlawed, if you believe that there should be more background checks, we can talk about that. Pelosi said if Trump can declare a national emergency for the wall, then if a Democrat's a president, they can declare a national emergency and ban guns, as if there's some kind of equivalent to that. But did you hear her say that? Yeah, that's a lunacy. It's pure lunacy. National emergency. Americans are dying because of guns, and now to them it's probably perfectly justified, right? To them it's probably perfectly justified because ultimately they want to take the guns for what reason, Jeff? Well, why do they want all the guns to be gone? Why have they always wanted the guns to be gone in any situation where they disarm the public? Well, I mean, Stalin, Hitler. Not to say it's going to go there, but a disarmed public is, We see in France what's going on for 12 or 13 weeks now straight. Yeah. The Yellow Vests have been rioting and marching, and they're being shot now. Without a doubt. They're being shot. Is that something that could come here, do you think? What do you think about that? Well, I think with the... hitting the streets? I think that they've lost their momentum on the left as far as massive marches and violence and all that sort of stuff, the Antifa movement, all that. Maybe it's too cold for them right now. I don't know. So as soon as summertime rolls around. Oh, my Xbox controller is so much more comfortable in the wintertime. But now imagine we do have a caller. Imagine though, people who believe in the Second Amendment. Yeah, we can take them. People who believe in the Second Amendment. There's been a certain level of patience. If there's Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure which one you are.
Caller,
since there are
what's your name and
47
where are you calling from?
This is Brian. I'm calling from Kirkville, New York.
What?
Thanks for calling in, Brian. We appreciate it.
The Sunshine State. I'm just joking.
Yeah. How you guys doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good. You guys have an interesting group of politicians out there, don't you?
Yeah, terrible.
The Empire State. Yeah, they're you know. What are your thoughts, man? What's on your mind?
Well, first off, I'm new to your show. It's fantastic. I love Sonny Puzinkas. I think he's one of your,
One of our
great
favorite
guests that you
guests.
have on. What I'd like to know is if you guys can ask him next time he's on, being I consider him one of the best tactical guys in the world, 5G. I've done a lot of research on it, and a lot of the science is stating that it shuts down the body's cellular communication. And basically, from a tactical standpoint, all of us guys that are knowing that our health is number one to survive, put up a fight, whatever we have to do as the future comes, it's looking like they're breaking our health down on purpose. And I think that in the tactical community, the one thing that's very rarely talked about is how are we going to combat the technologies that are out there breaking us down and making us sick. So we can all prep as much as we want. We can store food. We can have all our fancy guns and say we're going to do this and that. But when we're sick as dogs, because their frequencies that they're using are a military-grade weapon, I would like to know from guys that were in the military that understand that what 5G is putting out is it's going to cause cancer to skyrocket. It shuts down cellular communication by each cell creating a shield around the cell, and as soon as that happens, a range of illnesses just goes through the roof.
Well,
So
that's why we need to protect ourselves with. I mean, one of our sponsors, chemicalfreebody.com, with the greens and all the other stuff to keep your gut biome correct, all that sort of stuff. Look, that's one way to combat this, but also I would say it's important for people to recognize that the aerosol spraying that's going on right now, aluminum and other metals are in those sprays. And as I was saying last week, when you take a spoon, a metal utensil, and throw it in a microwave and turn it on, what happens? Sparks start flying, all kinds of stuff arcing off of it. So the 5G microwave, system, combined with all the metals that they're spraying into the air, I mean, we need to have someone who is far beyond our qualifications, obviously, to define this and tell us how exactly this is going to go down. But yeah, it's pretty scary stuff, man. It's pretty scary stuff, and a lot of the talk also was that Trump was shutting this down and slowing it down to have it reviewed because there's a lot of Chinese technology involved in this, and he's not down for that at all.
As far as the chem spraying goes, here in upstate New York, it's daily. It's unbelievable. We hardly ever get sun. If it's sunny one day every 2 weeks, that's like a gift. And anybody that knows better gets out in the sun to absorb some of the healing rays while it's available. But up here, people are sick like you wouldn't believe. We call it chem lung for us that understand it up here. A lot of respiratory problems. It's terrible. It's terrible to see if you're a guy who stays in the gym and you do any type of martial arts. A lot of the young guys are much weaker and sicker than my generation. I'm 45. And it seems like the young men today, 25 to 35, are having ailments that they shouldn't have for 30 more years. And if you're a guy who puts things together, you realize that people are being made sick on purpose, and it's terrible. So from a tactical standpoint, I listen to a lot of the great minds, and they never really touch on what do we do as this gets rolled out, because it all sounds good to go to the range and keep shooting and stay ready and all these things that guys do, but I have a feeling that everyone's going to be too sick for that, so I don't want to ramble on, but that's just my thoughts.
I appreciate your call, man, without a doubt, from the Empire State over there in New York. That's a very, very good point. I mean, we talk about it all the time, the social engineering aspect of all of this, of how, the food makes us sick, the soil's tainted, the air's tainted, the water's tainted. So, again, I mean, you're absolutely right. You can have all the food prep you want and go to the range as much as you want, but if you're too sick to operate, then you're kind of donezo. So, very, very good point. In my
opinion, if they get put out on the telephone poles nationwide, I don't think we have much of a chance. If we don't speak up and stop this technology, I don't think there's much we're going to be able to do. when you're out, and even if you shield your house with the paints and all the stuff they supply, you got to leave your home, and every other telephone pole is going to have a transmitter. You're going to get real sick real fast, and it's a shame.
And
I'm going to be a new dad, and I hate to see my new baby has to be born into a world of toxic air and now toxic frequencies. It's it's just a scary time to be alive. I'm an '80s kid. I want my '80s back.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you.
We'll have to have an expert on to discuss specifics on the 5G technology and potential damage that it's going to do. So we appreciate your call, sir.
Without a doubt.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. The podcast's amazing. I've shared it with all my friends in the dojo.
You're awesome, brother.
Woo. Thank you, brother. Yeah, man, 391-3776. Give us a call whenever's on your mind. Yeah, I've been wanting to do a 5G episode because you just hear it's coming. And, obviously you hear all the conveniences that it could help put to ease, but then you have that downside of the, like anything else, there's always an upside. And then
what do they claim are the upsides?
Well, I mean, we actually been joined by our boy producer, awesome stud here, Justin Holstein. What's up, Justin?
Hey. Sorry, a little late to the game here.
No, that's quite all right. But, I mean, like anything else, all these different conveniences, you're going to be able to upload a movie in like nth of a second as opposed to 5 minutes. I mean,
I don't care.
Well, I mean, for a lot of people who that's a big, big deal for them to get their services immediately, but that's pretty much a lot of the conveniences. It's making things a lot faster. Justin, you got any heads up on 5G? And
what was interesting to me, I was kind of late into that phone call and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys was he actually discussing a study of some sort? Or
it was just kind of his own kind of personal thoughts on what's going on in New York. See, a lot of people are getting sick.
Yeah. Well, I think there's multiple reasons for that. Actually, I'm on the board of a non-profit called Live Fit with Lupus, and part of this, I've gotten a lot of exposure of all these autoimmune disorders that are just jumping through the roof. Right, there's over a third of the American population that has some sort of autoimmune disorder now, and one of the ladies I was talking to last night who lived in New York for a long time said she taught in one of the the elementary schools there. And she said it got so common that kids had either asthma or all these various other problems there. And she said when she moved here and started teaching here for the past 3 years, she goes, it's almost non-existent in Iowa. She goes, it's so rare that you have. And she said it was almost every student.
Wow.
And then you wonder, is that because in New York, it's literally a city with no nature or anything around it. I mean, nobody's touching dirt anymore.
Right.
There's certain bacteria that you need from the dirt. There's certain, plant life. All this exposure to your environment, if you don't have it, will start over time making you sick.
Right. Yeah, the microorganisms and everything else in that soil. And, of course, luckily here in Iowa, we have that really rich black soil that got drug up here by the glaciers as they receded. We were pretty lucky with that. The reason we can grow so much food and everything else here. But, I mean, I grew up running around in the woods, building forts, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, hunting snakes, doing, everything else. And certainly I grew up pretty healthy. Rarely was sick. And so it's definitely got something to do with it. I really do believe that. But but also I think the stressors of you think about cities, growing up in a city like that, it's got to be very stressful for a kid to be just constant noise.
Yeah.
People everywhere, just just breathing in those cities from all the exhaust fumes and everything else. We live out here in timber and cornfields basically.
Right.
So we're pretty blessed.
I was having somebody, and I can't remember who this was, the conversation I was having with where they were talking about cell phones and these studies they had done before this became very prominent, right? I mean, we all remember before cell phones even existed.
Right.
And there were all these studies happening. And supposedly they had major concerns and scientific study to show that there could be these adverse effects. And we're not even talking about 5G, right? I mean, just look around you in the modern day. There's all kinds of waves being bounced around. And there always has, even before we started artificially doing it through our electrical transmission. And, there's gamma rays going through us. There are all kinds of different waves, right, just from outer space. So I'd be interested in seeing actual studies or having somebody who's an expert in this,
The 5G conversation is one I've been wanting to have for a while. It's just kind of above my, thought process, or not thought process, because I am concerned about it. But hearing a lot of people articulate these arguments about like the level of radiation and what it does when they throw it on these towers, I can only imagine, man, across the board, what kind of health effects, and we'll have to obviously maintain awareness about it.
I wish I was expecting that. Knew that question was going to come in. Would have spent a lot of time researching and reading up a little bit more on it. I've not read up enough. We're constantly bouncing around from subject to subject,
for sure,
as far as research and things like that. But 5G is one that we have not been able to keep up with. And
it's coming too, so we definitely do need to probably get on that and get an expert in. 391-563-391-3776.
So, national emergency. Let's move on. It's a national emergency.
I know.
Right?
Thoughts on that?
I think it's a legit national emergency. I mean, Border Patrol, on average, is stopping. That's the people they stop from getting over the border. Around 1,300 to 1,500 people a day. That's a lot of people.
It is.
That is a lot of people coming across the border or trying to get across the border. How many are getting through? That's something that is concerning.
Well, I mean, when you have this conversation, like I definitely feel there could be some benefits to it, but when you start talking about the real numbers as far as illegal aliens, we have to make sure we're intellectually honest and make sure we remind ourselves so many more of these are from people who overstay their visas, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
But I mean, at the end of the day, you still can't discount the fact that of course not all illegal immigrants are criminals, you fucking morons, but there's definitely a large group of them that are coming over doing some serious dirt. Now, will a wall stop all of them? That's hard to say, but I mean, there definitely is a problem on the border. Now, I don't have the crime statistics. I was hearing somebody the other day talking about Juarez or whatever, the crime's down. That might be the case, but we definitely have some issues with illegals coming over, overstaying their visas.
Yeah, I mean, well, I can throw out particulars on the amount of fentanyl that they seized in just one seizure that would kill 50 million Americans. Massive amounts of heroin. Now, not all of that is obviously brought across in giant backpacks and bales and all that sort of stuff. It's brought in vehicles and
for sure
and ships and other things. But there is a large amount being hiked across the border. We know that. They just found the body of a 12-year-old girl that had been raped. There was the DNA of 20 men who had raped her. Okay, found dead near the border. This sort of stuff is going on, right? This sort of stuff is going on.
To me, it's more interesting to hit those topic-specific things like that, right? Because when it comes down to it, the idea of the amount of sex trafficking that's going on nationally, I mean, would blow people's minds. I mean, it blew my mind when stories like the Boys Town thing came out.
Right,
you're thinking this is something that somebody with a warped mind would have written a novel about.
Right,
but it's not
exactly.
real. That couldn't be real, right?
Until people realize that almost 1 million children go missing a year in this country.
Yeah,
and within 48 hours, a child runaway. Under the age of 18 is contacted on an average under 48 hours by a human or sex
I
traffickers.
just posted today the feds lost 1,475 migrant children. That was from USA Today. I mean, really, they lost them.
Right.
See, there are good reasons for this, and I think everybody can pull out the good reasons, the good topics of, say, for instance, the border security. Okay, if you were really going to have an intelligent conversation on it, you could go to drug trade, like you were just bringing up there. I'm trying to think, who was the guy that was he was in New York and he got busted with a prostitute and he was going to be running for office. Elliot Spitzer.
Yeah.
Elliot Spitzer was on an NPR episode, and I'm sitting there listening to it, and they were going on to this whole idea that I think it was HBC or somebody had just gotten busted and fined a huge amount of money for terrorist. It was drug financing and terrorist financing or something like that, right? And Elliot Spitzer said, "Well, yeah, they got busted. I mean, pretty much all the banks are doing it." And the commentator said, "I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?" You said all the banks are doing it. Yeah, it's
right.
pretty much well known that all the banks do it. It's just whether or not they get caught. They find somebody to try to. And I'm thinking in my head, wow. Now we're making some headway. He's stating
what happened to him.
that all the banks are involved in illegal drug trade and finance.
Well, and this is what I say about all of those situations. I'd even brought him up, like, whether it's Dennis Hastert or Elliot Spitzer, they're all in, what his was a prostitute. He got pinched with a prostitute. You don't become the governor of New York without having some dirt on you or any kind of high up position. So when people get pinched like that, it's not a matter of like, oh my God, he did it. It's who'd you piss off? What did you say? And you just answered the question, I think.
If we're going into this idea that all this stuff is happening and we don't want it to happen, but there's just these bad few people that are bringing drugs in, when the idea is that all the banks are involved in this, then you see this is a bigger problem than just a few bad apples. This is,
It's systemic.
We need to cut the head off the snake, not just go and find the droppings of the snake.
Well, again, this is, you go back to Wells Fargo, to Wachovia, to BCCI, the Bank of Commercial Credit International, go back to Clark Clifford, go back to Mena, Arkansas, where they're funneling and washing hundreds of millions of cocaine dollars.
Allegedly.
No, that's legit. I mean, they know it happened. And that's what I'm saying. We were talking about earlier about black market economies, whether it's people, whether it's drugs, whether it's arms, whether it's body parts. This has been going on for a very long time. And, per like an Iran-Contra, when Congress wouldn't sanction the funding of arming the Contras, what did we do? We used some of that black market cocaine money or arms money from Iran and help fund that operation. This goes on throughout the world.
Hey, our friends down there who were combating communism needed some missiles.
And it is always interesting how we rationalize our behavior. You know what I mean? Like what we're doing in Venezuela, utilize these very undemocratic means to reinstill democracy. It's just like, and this, like I said, we said in the last episode, this has been going on for decades, going back to Nixon's Track 2 and overthrowing Allende in Chile and all these different governments in Central and South America.
The Mujahideen stopped the Russians from getting the titanium in Afghanistan.
Well, again, that's what we do. We justify our means to an end. 563-391-3776. Are we funding ISIS? That couldn't possibly be true.
I don't know. People aren't finding you interesting enough to call in.
Well, they can go service themselves. I'm damn interesting. I joke.
So you need to prep you really need to prep yourself for when this is on terrestrial radio.
What's that?
Control your language.
I said service myself. I could have said that. Why have I hardly cussed once?
I'm just helping. I'm reining you in, dude.
Oh, okay.
What's the most convincing argument you guys have heard about that we are funding ISIS? I can see many ways that we are indirectly. I mean, we've supported rebels. We've armed them.
We've admitted. Hillary Clinton's even admitted it. Even in congressional testimony, how we funded these guys.
There's documentation.
We had Bulgarian reporter Diana Gaitan-Jevan, who pretty much found the crate that was from NATO. And it's not just crates. Yeah, I mean, it's not just the U.S. It's the U.S., Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's a
along with the flight manifest from Silkway Airlines, an Azerbaijani, company that was flying massive shipments of weapons.
We have Canadian reporter Eva Bartlett, who's been there, boots on the ground in Syria for 9 times, maybe 10 times, reporting the same stuff. So you have people with literally like no axe to grind as far as a media standpoint affirming
people who've lost their jobs because of reporting the truth on that.
Well, I mean, even if you go back to the Grand, she absolutely did, and even if you go back to books like The Grand Chessboard, written by Zbigniew Brzezinski, he speaks very, prominently about proxy wars, us funding, and this goes back to 17th, 16th century. If Spain wanted to attack France and didn't want to exactly directly attack France, they would grab what they call privateers, little intermediaries to attack their groups so they don't actually declare war. I mean, proxies,
it's an old strategy.
It is. Proxies have been used geostrategically for a very long time. But as far as you directly answering your question, how do we know that we are funding ISIS? We've had a lot of independent confirmation of that from different reporters throughout the world. And even politicians have said it,
So back to the wall. We've got court cases already popping up. Trump said he'd be sued. He knew he'd be sued. Everybody knew he'd be sued. And I'm wondering how long this can be slowed down. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg, if she's going to vote on it.
We do know she's alive, right?
Do you know that?
That's something we never talked about. Remember that graphic they showed of her death, like they showed Ruth Bader Ginsburg birthday death
on Fox News.
How that just doesn't pop up out of the ether. Somebody had to prepare that.
Oh, they and I obviously in media they prepare obituaries for people and stuff like that. They do.
No, that reminds me.
If that were, I can see so many ways that would be extremely difficult to hide someone's death. Do we know any exact documented cases of that
hide
happening?
the reason for someone's death, like Antonin Scalia not getting an autopsy on a Supreme Court justice? That's a little trippy to me. That's a little trippy to me.
Wasn't it his kids who didn't want the autopsy?
See, no, that's state law. That's Texas state law. Oh, that goes back to the Kennedy assassination when they took his body out of the state of Texas without an official autopsy.
So it was Texas when that went down? That went down in Texas?
Yeah, that went down. I had on Dr. Cyril Wecht on my original podcast, me speaking to you, the forensic pathologist who served on the House Select Committee on assassinations for the Kennedy assassination. He pretty much debunked the single bullet theory. He's one of the main cats who did that. But yeah, he said that's absolutely unprecedented, that the fact that he was not given an autopsy, especially being a Supreme Court justice. And
they just
especially
had to
being
get that
Texas
body
law.
out of the state.
Precisely.
They had to get the body out of the state.
Because according to some reports, and this is unsubstantiated, but it's a theory, that he was... he's a part of a clique that likes to hunt children. He was on a hunting facility, and apparently this was one of those weekend retreats where they're hunting children, and one of the children supposedly slit his throat.
See,
You just went full Alex Jones on me, bro. You went full Alex Jones on me.
That is the report. That's not from Jeffrey Wilson. I'm regurgitating it, but that's the story.
reported from whom though? Was it?
It was one of our former guests, Fiona Barnett, Pat's favorite guest.
Don't even, you see, now it's automatically debunked. It's automatically debunked because I have zero
Faith in Fiona. She went after your
faith
boy.
in Fiona.
Yeah, I'm saying it's out there. It's out there in the ether. It does stand to. I mean, it does big question. What? The Supreme Court justice didn't get an autopsy? If he just died in his sleep, give the man an autopsy. Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Got to find out if it was a heart attack.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it is, just state law. Why are you guys circumventing state law and just a random, death of natural causes?
Right.
319.
So my point is to the
391-3776.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg thing. Where is she? Is she in a hospital? Is she at home? Is she, at least give us a status.
I think they're going to
update.
do like the weekend at Bernie's with her. They're just kind of going to do somebody's on one side, someone's on the other. They're going to marionette her.
But it's it's probably going to go through the Ninth Circuit Court. But Trump now is replacing those judges also. You realize that, right?
I don't.
Yeah, Trump is replacing those judges right now.
How old is Ruth?
85,
She's
I believe.
up there. Could you imagine
85.
if he does get to appoint another justice?
She's not. I thought she was almost 90, if not 90.
Well, once you hit like 85, I think you're just you're there.
Yeah.
You're there.
She looks like she's like 246.
Well, I mean, obviously you can get
Serious.
my wife's grandma's 97 right now. I think 96, 97. So she pretty much just eats ice cream at the end of the day.
I was talking to my friend the other day.
I'll keep that in mind, but I'll weigh 300 pounds if I do that.
Well, she sleeps until noon, and yeah, I mean, your body's just kind of screwed at some point. You're just kind of holding on.
If you could, per our conversation with Billy Carson a few episodes ago, talking about transferring consciousness, living like the Sumerian kings for tens of thousands of years, would you be down with that? Would you get bored if you could just kind of transfer consciousness to another body and avatar and just kind of keep it going?
I think it would be an interesting existence.
Right. You don't think you'd get bored like after 10, 20,000 years? You're like, God, damn, this is...
Well, back in those days when that supposedly went on, and obviously there were several people that were doing that who were leaders and things like
sure.
that.
Like I said, even if it was around today.
It'd be good, to hang out with the same people and, kind of... You'd figure out the ropes in life pretty eventually, right?
Right.
Probably eventually be able to acquire some wealth.
Well, I would hope so. I would think it would kind of turn into a Groundhog's Day, like that movie with Bill Murray after a while. Like you're kind of repeating the same.
Well,
not literally, but
we're already. I mean, we're talking about the nonsense that's going on today and the programming and all the craziness.
Yeah.
We've got a caller calling in, but if I lived that long, it might get a little boring with the stuff that's going on now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, caller, where are you calling from, and what's your name, buddy?
Hey, my name's Bob. I'm from New Jersey.
Roberto from the Garden State. How are you, Way?
I can't believe I got through. You guys are awesome, by the way.
Thanks,
I listen
man.
to you guys every single week.
Well, that's awesome that you do listen. We thank you for your.
This is Pat Miletich. This is Pat Miletich. I can't believe it. Oh my gosh.
No,
Yes,
this is Pat. I'm sorry.
That's Jeff. That's
Now you guys are doing the switcherooski.
So what's on your mind, Robert?
So after listening to you guys, listening to Tinfoil Hat podcast, I really got into the depopulation agenda.
Yes.
And it's not hard to hear all these crazy elitists talking about depopulation. But one of the things that kind of got me a little bit was this whole governor out of Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
And I started looking into like Open Secrets, which is like this website of donations, and I saw that Planned Parenthood was like his third top donor of like, I want to say like $3 million.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, with Trump, didn't he pull a lot of money from Planned Parenthood from these guys?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there has been some of the unfunding going on, and Planned Parenthood, whether you believe in choice or not, Planned Parenthood is funded by taxpayers to the tune of $500 million a year, and they take that money and they give it to politicians, campaigns who are running against, what I believe in anyway. Okay, so that's the thing. But when you see the Virginia governor come out and say that a mother who just had a child who survived an abortion, and then there would be a discussion between the mother and the doctor about what to do then with that infant. He's basically okaying infanticide. That man has serious issues. But more than anything else, how much money has he gotten towards his campaign from Planned Parenthood? And we know that there is a business in organs. We know that there was a child who was kept alive after an attempted abortion. The child was kept alive. It survived. They kept it alive long enough to harvest its brain, its heart, its lungs, and other things. Okay, and that's a fact. That's documented.
Well, also, too, wasn't there a court case or something that came out of California with, like, Da Vinci Labs or something like that?
Yeah, and it's going on all over the place, man. These people are making money off these little infants and aborted fetuses, and it's some very scary stuff. So when we go a little bit further, and I was talking about this last night when we had a podcast that I jumped on for a few minutes with Sam and some other guys. When you think about AI, and AI has already taken jobs in factories and things like that from a lot of people. AI eventually takes over a lot of jobs, right? AI is getting to the point where it can do almost anything, and it knows everything. Once AI takes, and they're talking about the universal income for human beings because you're no longer useful. You don't have a job. You serve zero purpose as far as contributing to society, making a living. They're going to give you a universal income. I don't think that that's the case at all. I think that the elitists, the true 0.1% of society who are at the top of the heap, once AI takes over most of the jobs, the manual labor, things like that in society, and humans no longer serve a purpose, what do you do with them as an elitist?
That's great. That's a great question.
That's when the scary stuff happens, bro.
Soylent Green, Soylent Green.
I've been looking into this Dr. Holdren. Have you heard of this guy?
John P. Holdren?
Yeah. Obama's health and technology czar or whatever he was.
Yeah.
You had to say Obama.
Yeah, well, sorry, guys. But between him and his papers and talking about forced sterilization and talking about they have to address the depopulation agenda, and then I really went down the rabbit hole on this. I'm looking at these different have you heard of atrazine?
Yeah.
All these things. It all kind of comes together.
Well, go back to National Security Memorandum 200. It pretty much affirms pretty much what's in John P. Holdren's book, and it goes back to almost the caller from New York a moment ago talking about the depopulation, people getting sick. I think it's definitely by design.
Then Bill Camper comes on. Bill Camper comes on and says AI will replace 25% of the workforce in 15 years.
That's true, without a doubt. Man.
Yeah.
Bartending, lawyers, doctors. I mean, it's you name it. Flipping burgers.
I'm waiting for Bill to call in.
Bill Camper. Oh, snaps. Go ahead and do it, Bill Camper, 563-391-3776. Come on and call in and declare your love for Trump.
So, Robert, please continue. We apologize.
No, not at all. I don't want to hog up the line for other good inquiries, but no, it's just I'm starting to think that it's all, I don't know, just from seeing what the Rockefellers, some have said, and just taking their direct quotes, and
you go back to the eugenicist,
called
dude.
The Octopus of Global Control by Charlie Robinson.
Yep.
There's an evil way. There's an evil way of looking at all that, but then there's also the way that imagine this. Imagine you were put in charge of some community, like for instance, India. At some point, if there's not a whole lot of education and there's just an open population with the oil boom and food transmitted everywhere, and that you're basically just funding the ability for people to procreate in unlimited numbers, at some point you would say your society's going to crumble.
It's unsustainable.
There's an intelligent way of population control too, right?
Right, exactly. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the moral dilemma of it. And I'll give you an example. I was writing a paper, and it was actually talking about Rhodesia and Zimbabwe. I don't know. Basically, what I was talking about was the war. And one of the things I realized was after World War II, the population jumped, literally doubled within 10 years.
War babies.
Yeah, and it's you just kind of come to think that maybe there's something that needs to be done about the population, when it comes to resources and everything. But this idea, this evil cabal that's poisoning us and, I don't know, doing all these nefarious things behind the scenes, it can't fly.
I mean, it's definitely legit, man. And again, go back, check out National Security Memorandum 200, and then go back kind of the founders of eugenics, who, you know, basically find, you know, certain people undesirable and will do things to get rid of them. Thank you for your call, my man. Appreciate you over in the garden statements.
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to buy a Conspiracy Farm shirt tonight.
Thank you, Robert.
Go for it, brother.
You got it. All right, we'll do. Bye.
Much
you
love.
talk about you know, that's the thing, the heavy conversation that we got into last night about, you know, AI taking over so many jobs, and mankind, a vast majority, 25% of the workforce, that's a massive number of human beings that no longer have jobs.
See, that's one of the other conversations that really isn't being told in intellectual honesty, because when people are saying all these foreigners are coming and taking our jobs, the biggest element of jobs is that it's basically artificial intelligence, and it's creating machinery to get rid of jobs, right?
Right, exactly. And so we've got another caller calling in. Let's hear what they got to say. Where are you calling in from, and what's your name?
This is George Pardos.
George Pardos. Oh, our Marine buddy. How you doing, George?
Oh, I'm just listening to you guys, and I wanted to put my 2 cents in for a second, if you don't mind.
George, we would love your 2 cents. You just can't cuss because we're on terrestrial radio. No, we aren't.
No, we aren't.
Yeah, we're just all over
the fuck
the
are you
globe.
talking about?
Hey, watch your language.
Oh my God, he beat me to it. Okay, the Da Vinci Labs. I'm not going to talk about that because there's a big article on it about what's called misappropriation of fetal tissue. But what I wanted to talk to you about was, if you don't mind, was the predictive analysis of AI. So a couple years ago, and this got shut down really quick, Facebook had this AI language that started talking to each other.
Right.
And so did Google, and they shut it down. There's a predictive analysis following Moore's law that that every 18 months chipsets double. Well, according to the best scientists out there, in 12 years, the ability of AI to basically do the things that humans can do will be on par with each other. The idea of automation taking much longer than that is going to be very compressed. That is a scary set of circumstances. With quantum computing and AI, a lot of the things that humans do today are going to be gone. And that is very scary. So when you're talking about a universal income, there's nothing that they're going to be able to predict that is going to be any of the existing models today.
And you know what's scary is you think about a radio show hosted by AI giving programmed responses to questions, like a talk show like this, and giving the already programmed in responses to every question, right?
The Max Headroom version.
Exactly.
Well, they have a movie out right now with a fake star, right? I can't remember what it's called. Do you know what I mean? It's not played by any. I think it's a computer-generated voice and everything. It's the whole idea that this star could live forever, right?
Because, right. So, George, do you think, you being a retired Marine, we've already got a lot of AI. We've got the drones going on. We've got a lot of other stuff. They're building, weapon systems that can move around, facial recognition, all that good stuff. How long does it take? Have you researched any of that as far as, AI taking over basically the position of men, kicking doors in?
Just going Skynet and becoming fully aware.
I'm going to tell you something even scary. I'm going to tell you something scarier. Raytheon, out of Raytheon weapon systems, have come up with a drone. This drone is there's two versions of it. One is called a micro drone, and the micro drone. And you guys just Google this. This is some scary DARPA shit. Basically, that's a technical term. But it has the drone is a high-level operating platform, and what it does, it drops a smaller drone to take out targets. Now, here's the scary part of it. Nobody has any answer to this. You plug in the terrorist, whatever terrorist, let's say al-Zarqawi, bin Laden, whoever the terrorist is, and you put there to have facial recognition. And then what happens is the micro drone will come down and basically attach biometrically to the target and blow up. Now, this is, and there's no human control whatsoever. No, there's no control. There's no, basically, all it is doing, it's prosecute, with extreme prejudice. That's a scary set of scenarios.
Just to interrupt to substantiate what you're saying, we had on Diana Gaichanjeva, who was doing a report on basically bio and chemical weapon labs in the UK who were developing genetic-specific bioweapons.
Well, it was a ring of like 25 labs, chemical and bioengineering weapons labs,
right.
that encircled Eurasia.
Yeah.
And they're all over the place. And we got into, even the lab down in West Africa, where the government there in Sierra Leone was freaking out. And, all the scientists in these labs have diplomatic immunity. Why do you give scientists diplomatic immunity? And
well, partly there's a reason for that. It's part of the Hague Accord. I mean, I can explain that to you, but there's a lot of it to it. There's one of the other things that's scary, and me and you disagree on this, but I will take one step towards your rabbit hole. There's an RH1 phenotype that has been basically it's called an outlier. Now, this outlier is something that can be targeted on what's called your second allele. And it is you can basically weaponize a virus, and it will only target certain people of our population.
Certainly, certain genetic markers.
Certain genetic markers. Now, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole that the CDC is lying about all the other stuff. But when you start talking about, mitochondrial identification in phenotypes and genotypes, and then all of a sudden you have a weaponized virus that you can distribute, and it will only kill these people that have this in a population. That's some scary next level thinking.
Well, and the U.S. the Department of Defense and the Pentagon released these documents on purpose. Dilyana Gatanchaiva was searching for something totally different and stumbled upon all of these chemical and biological weapons laboratories, and they released it on purpose to scare the hell out of the Russians and the Chinese, saying, if they're capable of this, which we believe they are, that they can release a virus in China that will target that genetic marker for the Chinese people and literally, wipe out a vast, a number of people.
Well, a lot of this is coming from the private market. We always talk about the government, but the government has acquisition departments that come in and buy out these private entities that have created these technologies.
Or they contract through them.
The contract to do it, yeah.
Right. There was a science program I was watching where they basically programmed a virus to create batteries out of ocean water. They just threw it in and it would create, they're microscopic, the basic principle of what a battery is, right?
Are you talking about the one where it's the wave simulator that Tesla uses? Is that the battery you're talking about?
No, but that's probably
it creates energy out of algae. Is that what you're talking about?
Right, but that's the way there's a wave generating electrical output device that does that from ocean water. Is that here's the problem with that one. They don't know how the downsides are with it. And what I mean by that is that one of the reasons, and I'll tell you this, I have a recycling company. One of the things that is a big deal in our business is the fact that it's called energy degradation. So what they're trying to figure out is how to store energy, and electricity has such a short half-life, you can't figure out how to store it NiCad or there. What they've thought about doing is basically saltwater emulsion to try to figure that out. And it's scary because it weaponizes systems that normally wouldn't be weaponized. That's the short version of it.
Right.
Well, think twice before you do your 23andMe, ladies and gentlemen. You never know where your blood could be going towards.
Oh, and the FBI they just handed that information over to the FBI.
Right. I saw that. That's absolutely insane. That is private information I have no idea how that happened.
I would love
how
to
that
say
was not
I'm
challenged
shocked.
in court
Yeah.
before it happened. But it's out of control. It is out of control, and the pharmaceutical industries attaining that information also. Yeah, a little bizarre. So, George, anything else on your mind, buddy?
Well, think about this. Think of that young black girl that they took her cells. Was it Pfizer or one of it? You guys discussed it a while back. They took her cells, came up with a vaccine, or they came up with and didn't tell her about it, and she had to sue later on. You guys talked about this a while back, and I can't remember the young lady's name, but she was they took her cells in research, made her drive, 2 hours every, week or something like that. And she had some sort of antigen that they used and never paid her for it.
Wow, I don't remember that.
I'll send you the information.
No, that's cool.
I mean, it's a very interesting thing, but it just goes to show you that,
No, very much so. Very interesting.
It just goes to show you that the willingness of corporations to exploit the cells or basically biological markers for profit.
Well, we've already said. I mean, we're being farmed in every way possible.
Yeah.
We are literally being farmed in every way possible. Well, once we can't be farmed, that's what I was talking about. Once we can't be farmed, once we really don't serve, we're not useful anymore because of AI. Once we can't be farmed anymore, what do they do with us, George?
That's what I said. What's that?
Are we talking about Georgia Guidestones?
Hey, you know what?
The
Bring
Georgia
back dueling and
Guidestones.
lightsabers.
What's that?
Bring back dueling and lightsabers and see who has a heel hook and who doesn't. I don't know.
Well, it's fascinating. What do you do with the minimum wage? What do you do with people's pay? In a capitalistic society where nobody has an income anymore because all the jobs have been taken away and automated, or do we all get in intellectual property ownership? Or I mean, I don't know.
New jobs of put at the YMCA's across the country. We get on treadmills and bikes and generate electricity.
Well, the new.
I mean, it's an interesting that's Tesla. That's why Tesla. Why they're trying to say let's colonize other places because we're going to run out of things to do. I don't know. I mean, what do you do? I mean, do you start putting people out to pasture? Do you do a Logan's Run?
Well, I'm just saying right now, I'm going to start. That's it. I've just figured out how I'm going to become a billionaire. I'm going to start health clubs across the country, and I'm going to give free memberships to people who are great runners, and I'm going to put them on treadmills. We're going to generate electricity, and we're going to sell it back to the grid, George. We're going to sell
Not a
it
bad
back.
idea. I mean,
Right.
your net worth is already at $20 million, so you ought to be you're halfway there.
It's 17 last I looked.
Yes. Well, let's try to
Last
fit in
I
another
looked.
couple calls. George, man, thank you, man.
Thanks, George.
Hey,
Good
guys,
talking to you,
it's always
buddy.
a pleasure. And all right, man, you guys have a great show. Always a pleasure listening to you guys.
Thank you, sir.
care,
Appreciate you,
brother.
man. George Pardos, former guest on the show. 563-391-3776. We have just a little bit more time left for a couple more calls. But, yeah, man, some interesting calls, some interesting subjects, some interesting topics we are broaching this fine day.
George came on as a guest, and when we talked about the Las Vegas shooting.
As well as Representative James Jordan, as a former Ohio State wrestler. He was chiming in on the veracity of some of the claims he was, whatever was going on at Ohio State.
That was some crazy stuff going on with that, and the complete false
Accusation.
claims against him. And
he survived it. Jim Jordan weathered the attack, but
well, it was all proven false, and the unfortunate situation, with Mark Coleman with that whole mess and everything, and it was just unfortunate that he had to get into the fray of things.
He did.
But I'd say what else is on your mind? What do we got going on?
Well,
Well, George had touched on the concept of quantum computing. We got another caller here, by the way.
Oh.
We're popular tonight, Jam and Justin. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, lady or gentleman, or I don't want to define you as a gender since there's like 40 of them, but how are you doing?
Name and location, please.
One Bill Camper, Chicago.
Oh, Billy Camper's calling in.
We got Sir William. What's up, dude?
Hello, fellas.
How you doing this fine night?
Hey, Jeff Pickett, Bill, real quick. Jeff Pickett just commented and said they're going to clone Camper.
One of a kind, my friend. One of a kind.
Without a doubt.
I didn't prepare any notes. You said call in. I just want to say hi. Say you look good there, Pat, without that beard.
Well,
25 years younger there.
That's very kind of you, Bill. So what's on your mind, buddy? What's on your mind? What's going on? The discussion that we were just having, what are you thinking?
Well, you don't let your guests talk enough, but
oh, here we
other
go.
than that,
All right, we're going to shut up. Go ahead.
no. I want to hear a little bit more. We talk and chat daily, so I want to. I haven't got a good answer to Ginsburg yet. You guys are on that, and I'm just a little curious about. Actually, I do have a question for you.
Okay.
There's a lot of debate between the QAnon community.
The what?
Never said
QAnon?
you are.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Between QAnon and who?
Between there's a debate, internal debates now going on with the community now. What's your take on that?
Jeff, go ahead. I'll let you take that first.
Well, I mean, I think it's a very, very sophisticated psyop utilized to kind of infiltrate and cause disruption within the conservative party, conservative movement. I like to call it, just as Alex Jones used to rave and rave and rave about the SWAT team going to come in and rape your whole family as fear porn. I think this is the antithesis of that. I like to call it hope porn, and the notion that Trump is somehow this super white hat working with Mueller on some big sophisticated sting and is going to drain the swamp and all the pedos of the world, et cetera, et cetera. So QAnon is supposedly there to hopefully make people think that there's balance about to be brought back to the force, and I unfortunately believe that that's not the case.
But seeing at the same time, now while I cannot confirm Q's credibility or anything like that, many things have come to fruition that Q has talked about. Other things obviously have not. Many things have not. So I'm not going to say. But one thing I will say is that the massive uptick in arrests of human traffickers and pedophiles and Hollywood rapists, the very big names, Weinstein and many others, who are going through an awful lot right now as soon as Trump gets into office, says an awful lot, to that there may be at least some credibility. Maybe they throw out tidbits. Maybe Q throws out tidbits of truth, mixed in with a lot of other, as Jeff puts it, hope porn. But a lot of the stuff has come to fruition. So it's very interesting what's going on. And if at very least, is it someone who considers themselves a white hat from the intelligence community? They have to be from the intelligence community because some of the stuff that they're putting out, in my mind anyway, or former intelligence community, where they have literally created a wave of citizens who are, or at least seem to be on the same page and against big government. So, call it what you will. I'm not going to, jump on board 100% with it, but there's some very interesting stuff that's gone down because of what it said.
Well, this is the debate now. It's a newer debate where some people have taken a step back and say, well, the narrative is the narrative, and it's woke up a lot of people, and that's the most important thing, whether it is true or not. And then there's others who are looking at it and becoming more skeptical about it all the way. Now, Pat, I'm going to call you out a little bit because, you have pushed a lot of the things that go on in that community. Why are you backing off now?
Well, I would say this. I would say that, many of the things, as I said before, have come to fruition. When we get a message that comes across that says, pay attention to the news in eastern Michigan on Monday, and suddenly a supposed meteor or a lot of people say it was a satellite went down into a neighborhood in eastern Michigan on Monday, as was told. I believe it went out on Saturday or Friday, just a few days before it happened. Look, man, that's just one of the many things. There's been, the people that have actually really kept a close eye on this say that there are, thousands, and I'm not going to go through and name thousands of them. But you know what I'm saying. A lot of the stuff, as I said, has come to fruition. Stuff that nobody could have just conjured up and had it come true. Pay attention to Eastern Michigan news, and suddenly a supposed satellite goes down into a garage.
Well, the question I have for you is and if you're at least admitting that, well, there's some truth out there, you're not putting a number on it, but there may be some things that aren't necessarily.
Well, I mean, they said that arrests, where the things that I'm full into understanding reality. Also, Bill, where when Q puts out arrests are going to start happening, Clinton's going to be arrested and all this stuff. That's pretty outlandish and hard to believe. And I never posted saying Hillary Clinton's going to be arrested, on this day. That's so. There's also been.
But you did say Obama was going to be impeached, and we have
I think that there's a real chance of that still happening. I think there's a very real chance of that still happening, and I'm not going to back off that a bit.
Here's my question for both of you guys:
Yeah.
Is there any danger in anything Whether we talk about the press a lot, we talk about sources like this, we talk about all sorts of sources. Is there any danger when things are half truth but not all the way truth? What's the danger of that to us?
It is very dangerous. It's very dangerous, and that's the function of mis/disinformation. I mean, I actually used to kind of enjoy, for entertainment purposes, Alex Jones, but it became quite transparent that, you know, he would drop maybe 95% of some real historic stuff or even current event stuff, but then slip in maybe 3 to 5% of stuff that's just blatant lies or mis or disinformation. That's kind of the whole point, is to be able to kind of say a lot of things that are kind of legitimately true to attract your audience, and then manipulate them essentially with these kind of half-truths or mistruths.
And ultimately, what's more dangerous, Bill? Us being fooled continually by the mainstream media and being told things that aren't true, when, you know, many people are waking up to the truths of what caused the Vietnam War, you know, what caused the Iraqi War, what caused, you know, the false flags in Syria of the chemical attacks by Assad that never happened, that, you know, actually were at the hands of the White Hats and al-Nusra and other terrorist organizations. What's the danger? What's more dangerous, us finding out the truth and actually combating it, or just going along to get along and eventually just totally becoming mindless zombies? That to me, is the scary part.
I agree with the dangers of that, and we can all agree here that misinformation has been part of the human experience as long as there's been societies.
And ultimately, you and I both, even though we disagree on many things, we want to know the truth, don't we, Bill?
One or two. We eventually want to get closer to the truth than we'll ever be, and that's the problem. You know, it's really easy to talk about finding truth in things you already believe.
And that's where you have confirmation biases, but that's what you and Pat talk about all the time. Truth oftentimes is a subjective term, and people filter their truth through different lenses. Bill, your lens is different than Pat's and is different than mine. So, I mean, what the major thing is, but per your point you just talked about, discernment is absolutely key. When we hear about 90%, or, you know, whenever we hear things that just might cause suspicion or question marks, we have to pay attention to that. And discernment has to be at the top of the order, because we could easily, as we see it, just through the kid with the red MAGA hat and the Indian guy and the Jesse Smollett lying about his attack, we could easily be played if we allow our opinions to have us and not have our own opinions.
You know, the big thing, I think,
you know, when we do this debates back and forth on Facebook, and we have a discussion in a room amongst, you know, people about different subjects, you know, that's one thing. And you guys are now growing your audience, obviously. A lot of people from different walks of life and different beliefs. I know you crossed them all. You guys are in a new position now, too, as a participant in spreading news and information. You guys are now have to be even more discerning.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
We are, and you know, I would say this. You know, did you initially believe that ISIS was being funded by our State Department amongst other people?
Well, you and I have had this debate, and it's a lot more complicated than the binary answer you're asking.
Sure. But did our State Department have a hand in that?
Yeah, our State Department funded a lot of groups over in Syria, no doubt, and arms fell into ISIS hands.
You know, so you know that was
into or were directly routed. As you know, there's language does mean something.
You know, the big thing is that you got to quantify what is ISIS specifically, because that kind of, it was a molding amoeba of different organizations.
That's what Pat said. Al-Nusra, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. I mean, you name it. It was just a name. Al-Qaeda originally means the database. So I mean, you got people from all over the world, from the stands to Algeria to Libya, all a part of these fighting forces that they move around the world.
I mean, a big part of under the Bush administration, when they were making a push to try to fight this, what they started doing was basically just giving a lot of their people on the ground, you know, $100 grand, $50 grand, and they'd be paying off all these different tribal leaders, because the biggest problem, they didn't have sources of income. I mean, part of being in these little groups they were joining is there was pay scales, there was vacation days,
and the allegiance falls to the hand that's paying.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, well, there you go. But that's all true, and we have a mutual friend who is part of that, and his simple explanation is we've always been, and
of course, but I just think that this was
rushing to the ground, and what happens on the ground, it gets messy, and you don't know who's who half the time. But sometimes you have made the point, you guys have made the point that this was let's fund ISIS to disrupt the Middle East, versus, hey, a lot of our arms and our money on the ground got into the wrong hands. Without
it didn't get into the wrong hands.
No, it was very, very geostrategically directly made to happen. Like you said, proxy wars have been going on for centuries. We just have to be honest about that conversation.
It was a proxy war.
Huh? It is, and it's been going on for. I mean, it's been going on for centuries. Like I just said, when Spain wanted to attack France, they used like privateers to basically attack France instead of Spain declaring war on France. I mean, proxy wars. Look, Doug, look up Operation Gladio. Look at what was going on during after the Cold War in Europe with Operation Gladio, and then look up Operation Gladio B. I mean, it's unfortunate and it's a hard pill to swallow, but we have been funding the very same motherfuckers who have been killing us for a very long time.
No doubt about that either.
And we
would probably disagree
by design, not some accidental business, but by design.
He already said we don't let our our guests talk enough, so just.
Well, I'm sorry.
Well, hey, I just appreciate that you let me on here.
Hell
yeah.
Love you.
And,
hey, we love you, Bill. We love you. Look, my indoctrination with you was in your basement with boxing gloves. Everybody beating each other up. All the hackies, man. Back in the day, Mike Wolf and Pachotti and you and all you crazy boys slapping each other around with boxing gloves.
The original Fight Club in Bettendorf High School. Yeah.
You know it.
Well, hey, I love you, and Jeff, it's been good to get to know you through
Absolutely,
all this.
sir.
I appreciate that. All my friends out there I argue with every day. Big shout out from Chicago. I got to go duck because someone might shoot my head off here.
We're gonna shoot. We're gonna ship you some Iowa water and get your head right.
We're gonna get you attacked. We're gonna get you attacked by a couple of yoked out Nigerian guys with MAGA hats on.
I'm upset. There's only one Bettendorf Bulldog at the state finals.
Yeah.
I'm nursing
I know.
that right
Yeah,
now.
that's a little bit of a bummer. And why didn't you defend Jesse Smollett in Chicago up there on the coldest night of the year? Why?
I
your
learned
boxing
how to keep my
skills.
mouth shut. I learned how to keep my mouth shut until the truth comes out, and I didn't say one word about that.
Right.
right.
There is a video of Bill out there. There is a video of Bill out there decking a kid in downtown Chicago. He tried to. What did he try to do? Steal your cell phone or something?
Yeah, he grabbed my cell. Him and his three friends grabbed my cell phone right off me.
And your boxing skills came into play. You had to level one of them, right?
That was the last time I threw one, but I got one.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool video actually.
I got my phone back. So, hey boys, I love you. I'll call again. We got important things to solve here.
All right, brother.
All right, buddy.
Thanks
Take
for
care.
the call. Awesome, Bill Camper.
All right, unless we've got another caller coming up here pretty quick, we're going to have to sign off.
Winder down.
From Conspiracy Farmland.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate all the callers.
We've got the guests in studio for our next show of Everything Combat.
If you're not doing anything, ladies and gentlemen, 7 p.m. ESPN 93.5. We will be going live with a couple cats who've, had trains with, and I don't even know if they're human. I think they've lost their mind.
I don't train with them anymore.
Well, we're going to be talking
They're
about
assholes.
the Leadville race, 100 miles. You have to do it in like a day or like 15 minutes or something, and you're in like altitude in the Rockies. I don't understand why they do it. We're going to talk a little about it next on Everything Combat, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, ESPN Radio 93.5, as well as live on Everything Combat YouTube and Facebook pages. And if you're bored during the week, Monday through Friday, my boy Jay Foster, T. Roy, they put down a little show called Don't Hassle Us. We're local. They talk a little sports.
93.5 ESPN,
Absolutely.
noon to 2 p.m.
Without a doubt.
Good
all right,
stuff.
With that being said, let's bid adieu to our fine farmers out there. Peace and so much love, everybody.
And one more thing. Don't forget. Go to chemicalfreebody.com /farmer.
Yeah, punch in the farmer for your
chemicalfreebody.com /farmer.
Promo code.
Punch in farmer for the promo code. Get discount on your products. And we love you. And the products will love you, and you will love them.
Absolutely. Peace. So much love. There will always be more. Holla.
You're